Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic. Let's do it. What's something that happened to you that sounds fake, but unfortunately was real? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. In 1986, my parents planned a trip to Disney in Florida. A random man tried to kidnap my half-brother by snatching him and running. He was tackled, my brother was safely returned to us, and nothing happened to the guy as he disappeared into the crowd. Fast forward to 1989. In Ohio, at a pop-up circus in a field, I was given change to go get a popcorn. A man dressed as a clown approached me and after several long minutes of small talk grabbed me. Bystanders saw the ordeal, and a random man with exquisite sideburns chased down this man who had thrown me into his pickup truck and gunned it. Mr. Sideburns and another man were able to pull him from the vehicle and stop the truck as it rolled into a parking lot and hit several parked cars. I was fine other than some forehead scrapes from hitting the dash. The clown was not a circus performer or associated with the circus. He was an opportunistic predator. I can't even say either of these events were the worst part of my childhood. Also, F-clowns. I was riding my bike around my apartment building as a kid, ran into some bullies from school. Now as a kid, I had a problem with shutting up. I had no idea how, so I pissed them off. So I was riding my bike as fast as possible to go get away from them. They were also on bikes when I got something on the ground and went flying. A few things to note. I was a tiny little girl, like 70 pounds tops. I was poor, so my bike was used, a bit rusty, and most importantly, missing handlebar grips. The combination of speed, my weight, and whatever I hit launched me more up than forward. So I hit something, the bike fell on its side, and then I fell on the bike. Felt like it knocked the wind out of me, and I knew it had to be bad because one of the bullied pedaled away as fast as possible. The other one helped me home and, saying that this doesn't make us friends on the way, left our bikes where they were. I didn't care, my midsection hurt where I landed. Got home, and my mom turned to greet me and practically screamed that I was bleeding. I looked down and realized that I was bleeding a lot from my stomach and fainted. I woke up at the hospital later to find out that I'd landed onto a bike handle, which had impaled me through my midsection about halfway through me. Missed my organs just barely and left me with a neat scar and a story no one believes until they see the scar. A huge tree branch fell through the roof in my bedroom during a storm. About a minute after that, a couple of raccoons fell into my room. I lived in a small, quiet town, and my house was in a cul-de-sac, so all the neighbors knew each other and we all got along well. One night, when I was about 12, I was babysitting my baby brothers, twins. It was bedtime, so we were laying in my mom's bed watching a movie to wind down. Suddenly, they both start whining that they want chocolate milk. I was super annoyed because I just wanted them to go to sleep so I could be off the clock, so to speak. Just as we walked through the doorway and out of the bedroom, I heard what sounded like firecrackers going off in the bedroom we just left. I peeked my head back in the doorway and heard a couple more. It sounded like it was coming from the closet, which was about a foot away from me at this point. I called my mom and told her what happened and that I was scared. We didn't go back in the room until she got home. Once she was home, we discovered several bullet holes throughout the bedroom, in the walls, in the closet door, and one in the corner of the TV, so we called the cops. They figured out that our neighbor had been doing some target practice in his garage and drinking, and his garage wall faced our house. So the bullets entered my mom's bedroom through the wall just a few inches above her bed, which had no headboard, right where our heads had been while we were lying there watching a movie. If those little butt heads hadn't bothered me for chocolate milk at that exact moment, things could have been very different. Yeah, I mean, first hearing that story, it sounds like it's not real, but it did, and it could have ended horribly, so glad it worked out for everyone. My grandmother prevented the neighbor boy from kidnapping our next door neighbor. Our house was the bus stop. I woke up sick that morning and didn't go to school. Grandma was the neighborhood grandma and kept an eye on the kids that were at the stop every morning. She was watching the girl at the corner. She was the only one riding that morning. Looked back and she was gone. He was dragging her across our backyard with a knife to her throat. My grandma ran at him screaming and throwing rocks at him while I called the cops. She won Citizen of the Year in our city. Years ago, I broke my left foot. After 6 weeks in a boot, I was leaving the orthopedist office boot-free. Just me and my own 2 feet, raw dogging the ground. I was so excited to drive home, now that I was out of the damn boot. And on the way to the car, I stepped off a curb, rolled my left ankle, and broke it. Not me, but my uncle. He was in Jamaica when his wife, who was doing fitness classes, died due to a perforated bowel from a meal at the resort, and the authorities drove him to an ATM and told him he's going to be suspect number 1 if he doesn't pay them, and he'll never have his wife repatriated to the US. He complied, and they took him back to the resort. Unbeknownst to him, T-Pain was also there and caught wind of the situation and worked magic with his connections to keep my uncle safe and bring my aunt home for a funeral, as well as providing his bodyguard protection to my uncle. To this day, almost 2 decades later, they will video chat on holidays like Easter to talk, and in my view, that man is a saint to our family. Anytime he's in town, they'll meet backstage before one of his concerts and they'll have a big hug. One time, he met his family. I'll never forget the kindness this man had shown over decades. It's insane. Not mine, but a friend's story. When she was about 5 or so, she was at CVS with her dad when someone robbed the store. While the robber is pointing a gun and yelling at everyone to get on the ground, her dad, being an Asian man born in Asia, says, "Happy Halloween," because he thought it was a costume. This happened in November. I was thrown off of a motorcycle on the interstate when I was 22 months old. Yes, months. My parents thought I was dead because my head was ripped open, skull too, but took me to the hospital anyway. ETA, this happened in the Midwest US on an interstate. I have quite a few very experienced riders, motorcyclists, motorcycle enthusiasts, etc. So I'm not doubting anyone's skill or ability, but a baby at 22 months on a bike, is it a necessary risk? I, 15 at the time, was traveling in a foreign country with my sister, 26. We stayed at a local hotel. My period came, and I got a little bit of the sheets the first night. Housekeeping came and cleaned as usual, nothing mentioned. A few days passed, and when we were checking out, they asked to see our passports again. I guess we thought they just needed to double-check their guest registry to update it. Once the passports were in his hand, the front desk person, male, got really angry with us and began yelling at us for making mess in the hotel. At first, we had no idea what he was talking about because we're very tidy travelers. He just kept yelling that we made trouble for him. He then proceeded to ask housekeeping to bring out the evidence, and guess what? They proceeded to bring out the unwashed sheets. What the? No idea where they had stored them. A nice young Australian couple witnessed the whole thing. The lady muttered, "It's just a few spots. Can't you just wash it?" He yelled at them to stay out of it, and they fell silent. He even asked who made the mess. My sister said she did. 15-year-old me felt like I had done something criminally wrong. My sister paid him for the sheets and got our passports back so we could leave. I have a tech company, and we are not in the best financial situation. We had a big contract awaiting signature. Well, it won't get signed because the person responsible for the project was one of the 5 casualties from the Titan submarine. I have randomly came across not 1 but 2 people attempting or about to attempt suicide. Didn't know either of them, but at totally different locations. Both times I was just living my normal life, and then suddenly I'm trying to stop a suicide. Ambulance came and got the one. The other one, after a very long talk down, ended up taking off and realizing I dialed 911, so the operator could hear what was going on. I was born in the early 80s, and during that time, they took newborns away to the nursery to be cared for away from the parents. When it was time for my mother to leave the hospital, they returned her baby to her, and before my parents left, they needed to change the baby's diaper. Well, when they removed the diaper, they saw that the baby they had was a girl, when my mother had given birth to a boy. The hospital tracked down the parents who had me and got the babies back to their rightful parents. Some crazy shit. My childhood best friend's mom passed away by drowning. My best friend then died a couple of months later by being hit by an 18-wheeler on the side of the road. Her father then died a few months later from throat cancer. Lost my entire second family in under a year due to unrelated incidents. It's been 7 years and I'm still not over it. When I was in elementary school, we went on a class trip to one of those old colonial towns to see how life was back then for settlers. During lunch break, I went to the bathroom and a man paid me to take pictures of me in the bathroom. I was really excited to get money. Next thing I knew, I was in a police car, scared out of my mind that I was in trouble. I kept apologizing to the cop while my mom tried to calm me down. I remember crying all night that my principal would hate me because I made the cops come. What an odd memory. My cousin beat my aunt to death, then put a towel over her face and sat down and ate dinner. My other cousin had a welfare check and they found him watching TV with her body in the kitchen. Edit. This happened about 10 years ago in Florida. My cousin is mentally unstable due to a car accident that happened to him when he was in his teens and has been on medication his whole life. And I guess the older he got, the worse he got. He was in his late 40s when he killed my aunt. I guess they got into an argument and he snapped and beat her to death, then cleaned up and put all the evidence in the attic but left her lying on the kitchen floor with a towel over her face. He's been in a mental institution ever since. I was once on a date and he got up to go to the toilet. After 10 minutes, I started to worry if he had left, so I sent him a text and he replied asking me to come to the toilet. I found it strange, but decided to go to the toilet. When I went in, I was hit with a smell that I had never experienced. He then told me that he had food poisoning, and he had shit his pants, and been sick all over himself. This was only our second date. I then had to ring his mother, and she had to come and drop off some new pants for him, and had to take him home. We'd already ordered food, so I had to pay because he had to leave. He never rang me back after that. Yeah. My epidural failed during an emergency C-section. I had listeria when my temp was 103 plus, and then the monitor for the baby's heartbeat went quite type emergency. I had the epidural in place for a while before, when we thought vaginal birth was still an option. No one in the OR believed me when I started telling them, then yelling at them that I was numb anymore. It happened after they had gotten through all of the parts of me to get to the baby, so I asked my husband if the baby was out. He said yes, and the tiny control I had left departed, and I was screaming at everyone that I could effing feel them and their metal paddles in my body. RN by my head reassured me it was just pressure, so my dumb self decided I was going to get the F out. I planted my feet on the table and tried to lift myself to scoot away from the people who in my mind were now torturing me. Husband says it looked like a seance or a magic trick where the person covered by a sheet levitates off the table bed. I made a huge mess too, since I did it kind of fast. Sent a bowl full of bloody gauze flying up to hit the ground. Tools clattered. I remember the poor anesthesist got yelled at while trying to give me a propofol. Then, lights out, finally. Emergency C-sections are no joke. Happened with the birth of my first son. Obviously, I'm a man, so I had the easy job, but I was ushered into the OR after the procedure happened in minutes and could still see I walked through the other side of the curtain, and that is a major surgery. And if you felt that, glad you're all right. When I was 10 years old, several people in my neighborhood were attacked by a deranged squirrel that was missing part of its tail. One day, my dad was at work and my mom was running errands, so myself and my two other brothers, aged 14 and 7, were left home alone. I was in the kitchen and my 7-year-old brother was playing on the back porch. Suddenly, a squirrel that was missing the tip of its tail started attacking the kitchen window. About 10 feet from where my brother was playing, I ran outside to caution my younger brother, but it was too late. The squirrel had already bitten a chunk out of his finger, which was squirting blood and was running up and down his arm while my brother screamed his head off. I grabbed this insane, bloodthirsty creature with my bare hands and chucked it into a tree. By now, my older brother had come to see what was going on. I told him what had happened, and because this took place in a small town in Mississippi, he of course had full access to the family gun cabinet. He got a gun, went outside, and shot some random squirrel that was not missing the tip of its tail. I told everyone that it was not the same squirrel, but no one listened to me. The story of my brother's heroic actions went around town, and he was even written about in the town newspaper for saving the day. Absolutely no mention of me or my heroism at all.